Welcome to NICU Stories. Hey, NICU Story followers. Welcome back to another episode of NICU Stories. Today we have a special guest on today. We have Miss Sarah of Little War Books, and we are excited to have her on to tell her story and what birthed Little War Books. It's Little War Book, right?
Little War Books.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I said it correctly. So, hey, Sarah. Hey, how are you?
I'm well, just dealing with toddler craziness, but other than that, working. And how are you doing?
I can't complain. I'm so glad to have you on and share your story. We spoke briefly before. Well, not briefly. We had a great girl chat. When children are home, adult conversation does come far and few between. So I definitely enjoyed our chat the other day.
Yes.
But I'm so glad to have you on to share your story and tell us all about how did you end up in the NICU? Not once, but twice, right?
Yes. We got a journey to get through here today.
I understand because we're also two-time NICU parents too.
Yes, you can relate for sure.
Yep.
Well, so let me give you a little backstory. My husband and I met in high school. We way back in the day, I used to give him music lessons. He was a year behind me in school, so we went to college together.
Oh, wow.
And reunited in college and started dating there. But we have both graduated. Yes, we both graduated from the University of Georgia, and then I came back home to get my degree in dental hygiene from the Medical College of Georgia, and he actually moved to Birmingham. He got his PhD in research at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. So that's what took us to Alabama. Mm-hmm. And that is where I had my girls. I was pregnant with twin girls. Twins run in the family.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And my mom, I love my mom. She's like, somebody's going to get it. It runs in the family. I know it is. And we were struggling a little bit to get pregnant. It took a little longer than we had anticipated, which was frustrating for those parents who have had troubles. It's hard, especially when, you take your steps, you do everything right. You wait like you're supposed to. And then it doesn't come so easy. And it's so hard when all your friends are having babies and you're just waiting. But our time finally came. And it was especially hard when I did get pregnant. I was so happy. And then I hated being pregnant. I was such a bad pregnant person. I was sick every day. And I don't know if it was having multiples or if I'm just not a good pregnant person, but I was sick all the time. I was so tired and it didn't let up. They gave me medication, which got me through the day, but it was hard. It was wrong. So we had our baby shower, and we came back from being home from our baby shower. And that week I had some cramping one morning, and I was getting ready for work, and I felt bad. I had a little bit of bleeding, which isn't uncommon for multiples. Sometimes you have, I guess, things get pushed in places that it shouldn't, and you end up having more bleeding than you're supposed to. So I just kind of chalked it up to that, but I just kept getting more cramps. And I called my boss, and she's like, you take the day, you do you, and you feel better, and let us know what's going on. And I kind of went back to bed, and my husband's like, we need to go to the doctor. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Mom's like, we're good. I'm fine. And he's like, no, we need to go. So he ended up taking me. It was before the clinic had opened. So we went to the triage, and they were asking me, like, why are you here? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't feel great. Like, can you just check me out real quick? And so they hook up the monitors. They got to find all the heartbeats. And when I had gone there, they checked. They're like, I think you're starting to dilate. And at this point, I was 28 weeks. And I was like, what's that? I'm sorry. I don't think I heard you right. And they kind of said, well, we need to start giving you some medication. Their lungs aren't quite developed like they're supposed to. And so they did. They took me into a different room and they said, all right, we're gonna set you up. We'll keep them in there as long as we can, and things will be great. And everything kind of happened very quickly from that point. Like they kept checking, and I went from 2 centimeters dilated to fully dilated. They're like, we got, like, your babies are coming today, like right now. Mm-hmm. Like we got to go to the emergency room. And my husband turned green. I've never seen a person turn green before.
Not red, but green.
He turned green. Yeah, I thought, he was like, I gotta go make a phone call. And I was like, make a phone call? What are you talking about? So he did. He went and called my parents and his parents, and basically had everybody travel from Georgia to Alabama to come see us while we were having our babies. So we got rushed to the emergency room, and I got the spinal epidural, which isn't very fun, that people tell you to hold still and just don't move so you don't paralyze yourself. And you're like, wait, I don't think this is a lot
of pressure.
Lots. Yes. And the whole time I felt so bad. So my doctor was on her way in, and the doctor that was on call, she was so sweet, but she kept apologizing to me. She just kept saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, my child has these diagnoses. He's got, cerebral palsy, but hopefully you'll be fine. And like in that moment, that's probably not what you want to hear. I know her heart was in the right place, but
it was a doctor.
And then your mind goes into 100 different directions. Like, is my kid gonna be okay? It's scary.
My mom did that to me. She was like, yeah, he had a little brother. He didn't make it. And I was like, Mom, this is not the time to talk about a baby dying. Like, I don't want to hear that right now. Like,
yes, it's scary. Especially, thankfully more people are coming out, and I appreciate you having this platform, because a lot of people don't know about premature birth. You think you go to the NICU for a couple weeks and your kid comes home and they're fine, and they don't realize, you start having these micro preemies, and they're in the hospital for months. Some come home, some don't,
Right.
And it takes a whole toll on you and your family. But it's something else. But thankfully, my girls were born. I apparently birthed very large babies. And so at 28 weeks, my girls were 2 pounds, 13 ounces and 2 pounds, 15 ounces. So they were big for their gestational age.
28 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So thankfully that helped us out to get.
And they were twins.
Yes, I was popping, girl. I was a big pregnant person, but it was beautiful. But yeah, so having them that early, I didn't really get to see them. They kind of tried to show me them while, I was having my C-section and they were closing things up, and you can't see anything. Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay. And they're like, well, we gotta go take them to the NICU and go do some work. And my husband, he took a picture and they just look pitiful. They were tiny and wrinkly. We called them my little old ladies. They look like little old ladies. They were all beaten, bruised up. And I just, it just breaks your heart to see them like that. But thankfully, UAB is an amazing hospital. They're a level 4 NICU. So they're a regional NICU. And so they were great about, after I was done recovering from my C-section, they actually wheeled the bed past the NICU so I could, hey, you can see them through the glass before sending me to my room, which was, in hindsight, it was kind of nice. But at the moment, you're like, I can't see anything. I'm sorry. Like, thank you for trying, but
right.
I can't see anything. So, but going to your room without your baby, and I know this, it's hard, especially if you're in those areas where you hear the babies in the room with the other moms, and you're just sitting there like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Now? Like, have a little pity party for myself.
I forgot about that moment. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is one lonely. It's like, what do you do? I always talk about the moment when you have to leave the hospital without them, but it's like sitting in
sitting
the
in that
hospital
room.
room and you hear everybody else with their baby and you're sitting here like,
I
I
got
don't
nothing.
even know. It's like empty space, empty air. It's just so empty. I forgot all about that moment until you said it just now. Like, you're right.
It hurt. I mean, like you kind of just are taking it in like, surely they're going to bring them in at some point, and they don't. Like, you got to go, a couple floors down or however your hospital's set up to go,
A couple floors down. It's not around the corner. You can't even like hobble over there. You gotta wait till somebody wheels you down. And yeah, oh my
yeah.
gosh, you just brought back so much memories in that
Oh,
regard.
I mean, it's just, it breaks your heart to think about all the moms that had to do it. But yeah, trying to do that. Thankfully, after a C-section, they really want you to get up and get going. So I was like, I guess we're going to go walk down to the NICU, So as soon as I was able, we went down to see them, and they just look so pitiful. I know you know what I'm talking about.
They do. Well, my daughter, she was wrinkly. Her skin was so thin. It's like she didn't even have enough skin to be wrinkly because she was just so little and underdeveloped. Like her skin was like paper thin. And she
Yeah.
was completely like red. We couldn't even really touch her like that because it would cause her to be like in shock because it was just so sensitive.
Oh, poor baby. It
Yes,
just, I mean, it breaks your heart to see
it
them like that,
does.
but that's the reality of the NICU,
But
and
at 2 pounds, were they fully developed, your babies? And the fact that they're twins, so how were they? Were they like fully developed? Did they look like normal newborn babies?
I mean, when I say they look like little old ladies, they look like little old, like teeny tiny little old lady. They, I mean, I would imagine. I mean, I guess that's a hard question to answer. No, they weren't fully developed, but thankfully, being on the bigger side, they had less challenges than they could have
Gotcha.
had.
It's like why I asked is my daughter's like she didn't have nail beds.
Yeah,
Her
they didn't
ears,
have the nails.
yeah, and
Yeah.
her ears are still fused shut, like to her head, to the side of her head. It was just like we're really watching her like develop
Oh,
outside of the utero. Like this is what they look like on the inside, and it
yes.
was something amazing to see, but it's also kind of scary because you're just like, oh my God, this is all supposed to be happening inside, not
Yeah.
outside, watching you grow nail beds and your ears finally
Yeah.
start to form and not be fused to the side of your head.
Yeah. No, they had ears, but their nails, and I mean their nails have been very light for, I mean, years. Like they're 4 now, and I think like they're starting to get normal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they I don't know what happened, but it was just like, I mean, they're paper thin. When you go to cut them, they don't make the clicking sounds when you're cutting them. They're just like, boop, they're gone. And um, they're just pitiful. But so one of my girls, she had a brain bleed. And the other one, she had a scratched retina. And so those were our biggest concerns when they were first born, other than, obviously, they had to go under the bilirubin lights and have the feeding tubes and the oxygen. But those were our biggest concerns. And when you hear things like brain bleeds, it's such a scary, yeah. What's that? I'm sorry. And they're like, well, hopefully it'll resolve. And I'm like, hopefully it'll resolve. Like,
hopefully.
Yes. So I know that's a very scary thing to hear in the NICU, but the nice thing, well, I don't know that the nice thing is, but the positive spin on it is that, it's a very common thing to happen in the NICU. And thankfully a lot of it does resolve without it, needing like a shunt put in or anything like that. So thankfully theirs resolved. My daughter's vision's not great, but thankfully the scratch mostly healed itself. And it took us about 6 days, I think, till we could hold them.
Wow.
And when we did, I think it was, you could hold them one at a time for a few minutes, and then you got to put them back in the box and just kind of wait till you can hold them again. I mean, that's what it felt like. It was such a cold, it's a cold experience having your baby taken, and then you're like, well, you can go visit them like you're visiting a pet at a pet shop. That's what it feels like. You take them out and pet them for a minute, then you put them back, and you're like, this is messed up.
Oh my God, the way you're illustrating this experience is like unlike anyone else, but it's
I'm so
so
sorry.
real. No, but it's so real because I'm like, you're right. It's like you got to put them right back in the box,
You put them
and it's
right
like
back
we're at
in
a
there.
petting zoo.
Excellent.
You pick the
Yes.
kangaroo for a little while, and it's like back in the box you go. It's like
Yeah.
that's exactly what the experience is, though.
It, it's a hard, I mean, it's a hard image to capture, but yeah, that pretty much that's what I imagined when it was happening. I was like, so I can't hold them for a little long. And they're like, they really need to go lay down and rest. So
Oh, yeah, you're so oh my God. I love the way that you're illustrating that experience so people really know like this is how we had to experience the first days or months of our
right,
child's life.
right. And I will say, we had a rough couple of weeks, but after that, things started going up. Like their stats were a lot better, and UAB had like a step down continuing care nursery. So once we got past the scary moments, we got to move a couple floors down over to there, and just kind of watch them grow and work on their big milestones. And I will say, as a mom of twins, I think the moment where I could kind of start feeling a little better about myself was when I could hold both of them together. There's
Mm.
just something about putting them back together when they hadn't been together for a while. It really was like my mom moment. Like they immediately reached out and grabbed each other's hand and they wouldn't let go. And I was just like, my babies missed each other.
Oh, and then it made you
Um,
realize their bond wasn't broken. Because I know was that a concern for you that twins had
yeah,
that bond? Would that bond be broken?
yeah. And I know a lot of research is going into now about, putting twins or triplets or multiples together to kind of help bring their levels up to improve their stats. And I've seen a lot of positive things from it. So I guess it depends on what NICU that you're in on what they're going to do with that. But I mean, I definitely think they did better when they were together.
Makes sense because if
Yeah.
they say like the kangarooing and them feeling our love and our touch is what helps them heal for like singletons, of course for twins, I would say just common sense
Right. They need
that
it.
they would it would have helped their growth because that was what they were used to. And it's like you don't know if how their little brains work, if do they feel like some sort of abandonment, you know what I mean? Like, where's
Right.
this person that I was with for all these weeks? You know what I mean? So that's
Right.
interesting. And it's good that they're reconsidering having them together.
Yes. So I will I will say it's a little tricky getting them together when you're doing your kangaroo care because they've got all the wires and the oxygen masks and the feeding tubes, and so we had to position the chair just right so all the cords would go together. And you can't move too much if you pull too
Because you
hard on
about
the
to
cord
ding, ding,
one
ding,
side.
ding, ding, something
Yes,
about the alarm.
yes, all the alarms go off and you're just like, oh my goodness, I'm breaking my babies, I'm so sorry. So yes, it's a challenge, but thankfully they made it out okay. Only had one really kind of scary moment. One of my daughters, she coded while I was holding her, and
Oh
that's the
no.
scariest thing. The light, you hear lots of dinging and alarms going off throughout their stay, but when the big alarms go off and the whole team rushes in,
Oh, that's the
it's for
scary part.
real. Yeah, they start working on your kid and you're like, oh my goodness, you feel guilty. You're like, did I do something wrong? Like maybe I shouldn't have held him that long today, or
Yeah.
but she's fine. They they
But
fixed
those
her up and
moments, they
yeah.
put you on edge, and then they're like, "Well, is it okay? Should I hold it? Should I not hold them together?
Yes.
Should I not?" Yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine that's a lot, but that's
You're
stressful.
really conflicted as a parent. You're like, because you want to hold them longer, but you gotta, is it better for them or am I doing this for myself? So yes, but I'm a big advocate of kangaroo care. I felt better, they felt better. So yes, thankfully. Thankfully they got her all fixed up and ready to go, and we didn't have any problems after that. We just worked on feeding's probably one of the hardest parts to get through because you kind of feel like, all right, we're doing good, we're ready, and then they're not eating and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. I remember hearing your podcast you did on spilling milk.
Oh yeah. Spilled milk
Woo!
is different in the NICU. You're like, this is liquid gold. It can't go to waste.
Yes. So the things I think that kept us sane in the NICU. So my husband, he's awesome. He read to my girls every day. He read to them. We got discharged from the hospital and went home, and that as soon as we got home, I said, I really want to go back. And he's like, I do too. And we went back, and he brought like a ton of books, and he sat there and read, and it got late, and he's like, we really do need to go home. And I was like, I know. And he's like, all right, one more book, one more book. And he did. He read to him as long as he could. And then he was finishing his postdoc when we had my kids. So he actually had to start a new job back in Georgia. So he was traveling, and every weekend he'd come back, and he had, all these books in his hand. I'm ready to read my books. And yeah, he's awesome. But his thing, he read and I pumped. That was our thing, to feel like you're contributing, but spilling a little bit of milk or dropping it. Or I remember, we would freeze our milk to take it back to the hospital. And I remember one time, like, something happened and it fell, and they're frozen, so the container just broke, and I was just like, no, you just kind of lose it for a minute. And I think it hit the concrete or the tile just right, and I had a little come apart moment. And he's like, it's okay, like, we have more. And I'm like, you don't understand. You wake up at, I had a timer set. You wake up at 12, you wake up at 3, you pump at 6, like, you just do it every 3 hours. Because, I wanted to make sure that my supply was up to feed both of them. And when it doesn't make it into the NICU, you are having a come apart. It's
devastating. Like, especially when you have to do that transporting and the pumping. It's like you feel like a little cow, because you're like, I'm being pumped like a little cow right now. Yes. And then you gotta, because your baby's not with you, So yes. For me, it just felt so uncomfortable, because I'm like, my daughter's not with me. It's one thing if she was with me and I would nurse her and then pump or something like that, but I just was like, oh gosh, I just feel like a little animal and being pumped like a cow. And I
it's very mechanical.
Yeah, so you got to do it, like you said, the hours, and then she was like 45 minutes away, so I would have to make sure I timed it just right. And then by the time I would get to her after sitting in traffic and all that craziness, it would be time to pump again. So then I got to hurry up. And it was so stressful for me that I was like, I can't I can't waste this tiny little drop of this milk. Like, I can't. It was too stressful. So eventually I just stopped, because I couldn't. It was too much for me.
I'm done. I get it. I can totally relate. That it's a job. It is a job, pumping for your babies. But if you can do it, great. If you can't do it, that's great too. Whatever you got to do. But I know the first week, I think my daughters got donated milk, and that really stuck with me, that I didn't even know you could do that. You could just donate some milk. So after we got home, and I had some excess milk, like I'm a big advocate, if you have leftovers, you donate it to your local milk bank or your local NICU, or Mother's Milk Bank of Austin's who we use. They have like a global system where they send it off, and they'll pay for shipping and things like that. So if you can donate, because it means the world to babies, who were born so early and could benefit from that liquid gold, it's,
and especially a lot of moms aren't producers. So that helps, and it takes away the stress.
Yes.
That they're at least still getting breast milk and not the formula.
Yes, it's one less thing you got to think about. But
and no indictment to any parent who uses formula. It's just parents who want to use breast milk. It's like, but can't produce. It's very stressful too.
Yeah, yes, it is. But I think it's a great program that you could do. I know March of Dimes, they were amazing when we were in the NICU. Like our representatives, they had everything. They had, event days, and they had scrapbooking moments. And I mean, they had, mingle with other moms, or they'd have like a pizza party, or they were just awesome. They really provided for the families. in the NICU. And they also help take care of a program that we fell in love with called Beads of Courage. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
Oh, they're amazing. They provide basically like a tangible medical history for your child. So, you get admitted to the NICU, you get a bead. You get a needle stick that day, you get a bead. Every day that you're in the NICU, you get a bead. So each milestone that you hit, every therapy, any surgery that you have, they give you a bead. So by the time that you're finished with your treatment, or you make it home, like you have this huge strand of beads that basically tells your story.
Oh wow! And now you're saying beads of courage.
Beads of courage.
Oh, okay, I thought you said beats. I'm like, so they're
No.
crazy. You got a song?
Little teeny tiny beads of courage. I highly recommend looking them up. They are fantastic. But it really, like, my girls, they look back and, they can say, I went through all that to get home. And they have more than just a NICU program. They've got one, for childhood cancers or children, who go through heart surgeries and transplants and things like that. So they really are just an amazing program.
That is so important. They each had their own strand.
They had their own strand. They gave them a little bag to keep it in. So it really is like a very special keepsake for us. So one of my daughters, she got to come home. I think it was 59 days. So she got home a little early, but it was awful because my girls didn't come home together. So I had to leave one behind, and nobody tells you what that feels like. And let me tell you right now, any mom of multiples, it feels terrible because you're rejoicing to get to bring your child home. And then the mom guilt of, I have to leave my baby here. It's awful.
Yeah, about their twin too. Like, oh
yeah. And you're wondering if they're feeling the disconnect. And at least in the room when we went home, I was like, they got each other. They're fine. And then having to leave one, you're like, oh, my babies, we gotta leave.
When you went back to visit, were you able to bring the twin with you?
Yes. So we had our girls pre-COVID. So thankfully we were able to bring the other one, and our nurses, UAB was really just a great hospital. They provided another little cot. They're like, no one's using this right now. So if you want, you could set her down, because I was kind of doing some of it on my own. So I had to set her down, and then I could hold my baby who I was gone. But then when she cried, you
gotta juggle.
Having to juggle babies is rough.
Even pre-COVID, like if they're not a certain age, they don't usually, like I couldn't bring my daughter in the NICU to see my son. I was like, I want her to see him, but they wouldn't let her in. So it was good that they let you bring the twin in.
Yes. And I think with my husband being gone too, like I really didn't have another option. My parents, mom came and she helped a lot when she could. But they were great. They kind of really wanted them to be together because their stats would do so much better. They encouraged it. So thankfully we got to bring her. And then 78 days later, she got to come home. So we had my babies together again. So 78 days total. So it was about 3 weeks apart from when baby B came home, and then baby A came home. But those last few weeks were frustrating. It was all about feeds, getting their feed. She would stop breathing while she was feeding, and I was like, just eat,
take your time.
Yes. And it's hard, you see all those moms that kind of came in with you, and they're taking their babies home, and you're like, come on, baby, like I know you can do it.
Did you find yourself getting very like anxious?
Yes.
Last part.
Yeah. It was hard. It's kind of heartbreaking because they're like, all right, she's doing great. I think she'll be able to come home on, Thursday. And you're like, awesome. Thursday's the day. I told my husband, I was like, better be here on Thursday, drive over, get ready. And the day before, it's like, it's not happening. She's going to need a little longer. And, it breaks your heart because you have your heart set on that day. But, sometimes your baby just needs a little more time. And you just have to take a deep breath and, say, God's got this, she needs more time. It's better for her to be here. But in the moment, you're just like, come on.
Yeah, right. And every little thing agitates you. You're like, but she's fine. Can we
Yeah.
just go home now?
Yes. But thankfully we brought them home. And actually that day we got discharged from the NICU. We actually drove from Alabama to Georgia. So it was a 4.5-hour drive. And I was like, can they make it? And they're like, they'll be fine. Just make sure you keep checking on them. So, the whole trip, you're like turning around, you're like, are you okay? Are you breathing? You haven't spit up. Like, do you need to eat? We had to stop and, got a pump, and then I had to feed them. I mean, it was a stressful day to say the least, but we made it to Georgia. We, got the support from our family. I think it's very important to have, your support system in place, because having a baby is hard. Having a baby in the NICU is even harder. It's just, you need something.
And then I have two in the NICU.
Yeah, then going through the first couple of months with twins, and you're sleep deprived and you're pumping all the time. Like it's a lot. So we are so thankful to have our family and our friends close by. And the first couple of weeks I was home, it was strange. I wrote a poem, which I am not a poet. I don't sit around writing. I don't journal.
Wow.
But I did. I wrote a poem, and I thought, that was weird. And I just stuck it in my nightstand, and it sat there for years. And we got pregnant with my son. We were trying for another one. And he was born when my girls turned 2. He was born at 37 weeks. Mm-hmm. And he actually went to the NICU also. We got to hold him. That was nice. I got to do my first hold with him. And then I guess he was having some breathing issues. So they took him to the NICU, and they're like, well, we'll just, we're going to check him out, and we'll get you settled in your room, and we'll bring him by. And then he never came by. And, once again, you're sitting in that room hearing the babies and the moms, and you're like, where is my kid? And he had to go to the NICU and work on him. And what do? You just say, here we go again.
What was your thought when you're like, oh my God, I'm going back to the NICU? Like,
I really, PTSD, some people talk about it's so real, because you start smelling those smells again, and you hear those sounds, and it all just kind of comes back. You got a little bit of fear, you have disappointment, you kind of feel like a failure. You're like, what did I do? Like, how did I mess this up again? Like, I did everything right. Like, my baby was born 37 weeks. He's kind of big. Like, I don't understand. And, God has other plans, and that's okay. You just, thankfully, I feel like I'm strong enough in my faith where I feel like he had him, and I was like, you know what, we're going to do this again. We got this. And thankfully he was only there for about a week. He really wasn't there for very long, but it's still, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails to go home empty-handed again. You're just like, come on. Like, you got your friends with their cute pictures, I'm going home with my baby. And you're like, I didn't get that. And I know you can relate, because you had the same thing.
We don't get the newborn photos when you're in the NICU. Like, you don't get the whole, oh, look at them. No, we don't get all those things. Like,
they're rooming in where they're sitting with you right next to your hospital bed. I mean, you don't. And the guilt is just awful. And this was the first time I had left my girls. I stopped working because our pediatrician's like, their immune system's not great. If you can, like, you can do daycare, but you probably shouldn't. And it's so expensive. So I stopped working to be a stay-at-home mom. And, that was the first time that I had left them alone. My husband was a champ. He handled two-year-olds going through, the rough 2-year-old stage, the terrible twos, the terrific twos, if you will. But he handled it like a champ. But, it breaks your heart, because you want to be with them. Yeah. You got to be with your baby in the NICU. I had a very traumatic second birthing situation, and, trying to heal yourself. Like, you just don't, you don't get a minute to do that.
Yeah. Now, did they make you go through a high risk specialist because you had preemies prior?
No, so my first pregnancy with the girls, it was considered high risk because multiples automatically puts you in that category. So, you get the extra ultrasounds, you go to a specialist for your anatomy scan. But no, for my second, thankfully, I kind of grew up with my OB. She was the first one I ever saw when I was a teenager. So I got to go back to her because she's a different doctor than who helped birth my girls. But, I had told her what happened with us before. And she's like, we're going to work together, and we're, if we got to do extra ultrasounds and check your cervix, make sure things are right. Like, we're going to do what we have to do to keep him in there as long as we can. So I think it's very important for moms, especially, to find a doctor that you trust. That you feel comfortable with, that you are willing to, voice your concerns with, because some people feel like they're not heard, or that people just don't, give you that extra attention that sometimes you just need to feel comfortable with. And I think it's real important to find a doctor that, that will be there for you, who's there for you and your baby.
Right. For me, they made me go to a high risk specialist for my son, and I had
to do
progesterone shots. So that added to the frustration. I'm like, I did everything they told me to do.
Yes.
Still here. Like, what?
Yes, that was. So we had talked about doing that, but she's like, honestly, like, I think it was just weird. Sometimes having multiples, like, pregnancies just are not, they're not typical pregnancies. Like, things can happen that shouldn't have happened just because there were two of them. And so she was thinking it was more
the fact that there was
that. So what happened with my son is I had precipitous labor. So I had very quick labor. So my water had broke for him, and we went to I went and took a shower. I got my stuff ready. We went to the hospital, and I was like, hey guys, like, let's do this. It was the middle of the night. So like, we'll get the C-section team in here soon. They're all still sleeping. Like, it'll be a little bit. And we just sat there and, chatted with the nurses until, I was like, something doesn't feel right. And then I was like, something does not feel right. And, I went from being like 2 centimeters dilated to fully dilated. They're like, girl, you're having your baby right now. And I was like, whoa, what? And, it was very traumatic, lots of screaming involved. And the nurses were screaming at each other. We didn't get an anesthesiologist in time. So the nurse anesthetist was like, I got you, girl. Like, let's do it there. I mean, it was
a lot chaotic.
It was a lot, but, I ended up having to be back. I had my son, and there he was. But, it makes me wonder, like, should I have done things differently? Like, should I have scheduled a C-section earlier than that? You don't know. You don't know. And as a mom, you take it all in on yourself. Like, I should have done this right. But,
you just never know. Like,
you never know. But thankfully,
we scheduled my son's C-section for 38 weeks. So you said you had him at 37. You would never think to do anything earlier than that.
No, but I mean, and you don't want to take them too early so you don't have troubles that you did. So, I mean, my doctor was amazing. She cracked me up the whole time. We were cutting jokes, even though it really wasn't fun. I think that's my defense mechanism. But she
laugh, right?
Yes, but she did great, and God had him, and he helped bring my babies home. So I had 3 miracles. I told God I always wanted to, witness a miracle. That was my bucket list, and I got to see 3 of them.
3 of them.
But when he got home, my husband's like, we got to give back somehow. We really do. And he's like, we read all these books all the time. We might as well, make a book of our own. And I was like, well, actually, I wrote this poem. And he's like, you did what? And I said, I know, it's kind of weird for me. But he read it, and he's like, I think this is such a great thing to share with other NICU families. Like, I really feel like they would benefit from it. So, so we ended up turning basically my love letter to my children into a children's book. Which was I'm so crafty. I love to craft and be creative. And it was just so fun to make, it was so fun to make a book. And we just published it in November. We waited until World Prematurity Day to publish it. And
oh wait, November 2021.
Yes, I mean, I just.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so we just published our book. It's called Our NICU Journey, and it basically, it tells of a family that goes to the hospital, and it has the family moments of them being there, and then it has them coming home. And I think one of my favorite things that we included in the book was I had reached out to Beads of Courage, and I shared my poem with them, and I told them my intentions of turning it into a children's book. And I was like, I would love for you to be a resource for other parents to share, your program with them. And they loved the idea. And so throughout the whole book, we have this growing strand of beads. And at the very end, they got to take, beads in hand. They went home, and it's just such a powerful message to make it home from the NICU. But
it is.
Your programs like that are just amazing.
How long did your son stay in the NICU?
He was there, I want to say it was day 6 he got to come home. So it was almost a week.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yes. So it was a very short stay, thankfully. He had a couple not great days. And then, he wouldn't breathe when he was eating. And then it was like day 5, he's like, oh, I got this. And the doctor's like, oh, okay. Well, okay. I guess he's breathing more normal. And, making sure that you're there for them. If you can be, holding them, I think helps a lot. Reading so they can hear your voice helps a lot. But some kids just need a little extra time, and that's okay.
Yep, it sure is. It's just still that time of back in that NICU again, or having to leave them there. It's still just hard to have to go through that experience again.
Yes. And I think, talking to somebody about what you went through, which I am not, like, thank you for having me on here to share my story. But I'm not one of those people that just like, hey, this is, the trauma that I went through. You want to hear about it? It's not really like a great conversational piece. But I think it's so important for people to find some kind of outlet to process your feelings, because I internalize a lot, and I just kind of hold it all in. And I think creating this book has kind of forced me to be more open and talk about it more. And, meeting other people in the NICU community, like, you just get this immediate bond with them, because it's like they've been there. They know those feelings that you felt, and, reaching out and sharing your story, and, trying to help other, one tip to another parent might, change everything for them. That might be the one tip that they needed to get through another day.
Because it's such a crazy world, and no two stories are the same. No two experiences are the same. So it's like, you're like, how do I get through this? But to have someone who can identify with this experience, and like you said, just give that one little tip, it just helps so much. Especially for me, like, there wasn't a lot of resources then, and it wasn't a lot of support. But having those beads, I just think that was so creative and such a good little monumental moment to have while you're in a NICU to help get through that process.
It's a beautiful program. I hope that they get their message out there more, because I just cannot say enough great things about it. I mean, obviously we put them in a book, but they really, it's important, I think, for your kids to see how resilient they are. Now that our kids are getting a little bit older, especially through the toddler stages, getting through the days, I think good enough. But, as they get older and they start to realize, maybe I am tough, maybe I can do these things. Or when they start to doubt themselves, I can show them those beads and say, look what you did. Like, you are a tough kid. Like, you can do anything.
And have your book too, I read the Bible to my daughter when she was in the NICU.
Yes.
I think I was too traumatized to read anything to my son. I said, my poor kid. I didn't think to read to my son, but my daughter, I said, you know what, you're gonna get the word. So we just
That's great though. I think reading to your kids is so important, whether they were in the NICU or they weren't. Like they
Right.
really, my girls, I want to say around 18 months started doing full sentences. I'm sure them talking to each other
You can see
helped,
the
but
difference.
yes, but their vocabulary, was just amazing. And I think they just, it's great bonding time between a parent and a kid where they know that you are focused on them.
Right.
And, they can learn words and learn concepts and see pictures and point things out with you. It's very interactive. And, reading's just such an amazing gift.
Right. And then you have a book with that experience. It's like it helps them with their, their learning and development. And then it also helps, the parent because they're going through that experience. So it's like, hey, I have this book that I can identify with, someone who identifies with this experiences, and it kind of probably helps them get through the experience a little more.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy that you birthed, and it's such a sweet sentiment that it was birthed from a love letter to your babies. Like
I know. And I love that my husband, like he's my hardest critic, don't get me wrong, but he really like has supported me through it. And, it really was his idea because he, that was his thing. That's how he coped through it. His thing, he couldn't obviously, I can't do surgery on them. I'm not that kind of doctor, but I can read to my kid. I feel like I'm contributing. I think that was his way of kind of coping through some of his feelings, and it helped reassure him and make him feel like he was
like he
contributing.
mattered. Yeah. Like we did the March for Dads in March, and when I did it, I had no idea it was Women's Month also. So I was like, well, I'm out here now. I got to keep going. But just letting dads know like you matter and you can contribute. So I'm glad that you shared that in regards to your husband. So anyone else who's listening, there's different ways you might, you can't pump milk. We get it, but there's just so many things that you can do to contribute, and like you have value, and your voice matters, how you feel matters, how you're navigating through this matters. And even if it's reading a book, that's so huge because reading to them, really, you do see the difference. Like my daughter started reading and writing very early.
Right.
In preschool, she was just like 3 years old, and she was, starting to read. My son, he was a little delayed in that area. And I was like, man, I should have read to him while he was in the NICU. But I saw the difference, from reading to them. But, just as how, he's very intelligent now, but it just took him a little longer to do the reading and the writing versus my daughter. She just got it so early and so quick. So I agree with you in that regards, like how important the reading is. And dads, if you can read to your babies, you're gonna see the difference in the long run.
Right. Or sing or something, just
that part. Yep, it all matters.
Or showing up for your partner, I think means a lot too, because it's a lot for both sides to take on that stress. And I think just knowing you've got somebody there who's going to back you up. My husband was my rock. I mean, like he held it together, and I was just like, we gotta get through this. And he was so level-headed. He's like, we're good. Like God's got this. We're good.
We're going to make it.
Yeah.
If you leave any encouraging word to the audience, what would it be?
Whew. I would say, and this is such a simple thing, but just to be kind, like just be kind to yourself. It's not your fault. Other people have their own journeys, and you really can't compare it. So, be kind to other people that have gone through it, whether you were there for 2 days or you were in the NICU, for 2 months or, however long, like you don't know what that person went through to get to where they're at now. And I think just being kind to your healthcare team, because they really do want what's best for your kid, or they wouldn't be where they are now. But I think it's just really important to remember to be kind to your friends and family, because when you get home, that journey doesn't necessarily end there either. My girls, they went through physical therapy, and I don't think there's enough awareness, or maybe people just don't understand, how complicated things can be. So, just be patient and be kind with them, and maybe kind of help educate them and explain to them that, things are still rough. You got to remember that you don't know the NICU process until you've been through the NICU process. And you really have you have a change of heart. You've got a new understanding. So, just be kind to yourself and other families and connect. And yeah, I pray for all the NICU families out there, past and present, and all those where, I mean, it's an amazing community, and I love hearing stories and connecting with other families. And I think it's amazing what you're doing and sharing stories too. And,
I love that you created your book. I mean, I wish I had a book to read to get me through that process, because you kind of feel alone when you're going through it. So to have a book and know that someone and I love the way that you illustrated. I don't know if you put this in your book. Maybe you need to come out with book number 2. Because the way you illustrated, like, just the little moments that we kind of forget about, but it's like, oh my God, like I forgot all about that, but that is just so real, how that's exactly how it feels, So I just love your take on it, and the fact that you shared and expressed and, just illustrated the experience in that way. It was golden.
Well, everybody's experience is a little bit different, but it's hard explaining, a NICU journey to people who have, I mean, you don't see that side,
right?
Unless you're thrown into it, and then you really are thrown into it. It's quite a whirlwind. So
has so many episodes, and now I don't think anybody can recall that moment of how they felt, being in the room while their child was in the NICU and they're still in the hospital. It's like, we always talk about, how we felt leaving our babies at the hospital, but it's like, I'm in the same hospital as you and I'm on a different floor than you, but just sitting in the room by yourself, like, the fact that you brought that up, I'm like, I'm pretty sure just about every NICU parent can identify with how that.
It's heartbreaking. Yeah. For the mom, the dad. I know my husband, he sat there and he's like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, well, you can go watch them pump parts. But, other than that, you don't, it's so surreal. Like, you just don't, you don't know what to do.
Like the Twilight Zone. Like, I don't
yeah.
know.
Time just stops. Time stops. And we called it NICU time. NICU time has its own time. And, you take one day at a time and you just get through it, and you lean on your support team and your faith, and you'll get there. You'll get there one step at a time.
If you can share with the audience how they can follow you, your website, your social media handles.
Oh yeah. So our website is www.littlewardbooks.com. And you can find, there's a resource page. You can find, March of Dimes, Beads of Courage, if you're interested in learning more about them, the Milk Bank. We've got links to all of those places. And there's a link to our book. You can find it on Amazon right now. We have been waiting very patiently for our hard copies to come in, but shipping's been a little crazy this year. But once it's available, Beads of Courage will have it through their shop. That way they can benefit from it some. And you can find us at on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page, Little Ward Books. And you can find my author Instagram at Instagram.com at Sarah_Immonen, IMMONEN, kind of like the candy M&M, _Ward. I look forward to hearing from other families and just connecting and, praying for them. And,
you're so amazing.
It's such a great community that, I mean, you instantly bond with people, especially twin moms. I don't know how it works. I don't know how it's like, they just know, like you're in the Target parking lot and like people beeline it. They're like, you have twins. I do too. And it's like a weird, you instantly understand. You're like, I know you don't sleep anymore, do you?
Right.
But I think the NICU community is kind of the same way. Like you just know.
Right. All right. So I thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today and sharing such an incredible story and just your amazing illustration on just how I just love how you articulated and just really illustrated the NICU experience just on a different level. And then I just feel like you just pulled some things up that a lot of us probably forgot and just probably like, oh yeah, I remember. So hopefully we're going to see book 2 come.
Oh goodness. a lot more work than I have a lot more appreciation of authors after having gone through the process. It's a lot. But I have met so many amazing people on the way. My illustrator as a mom to 3, and she was just fantastic. You make a lot of friendships doing things like this, and I just love it. I love it. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a second one. Maybe there won't. But either way, we've got my babies got their keepsake, and hopefully it helps other families not feel like they're alone, and that they got a good resource out there to read to their kids.
I love it. I just love your spirit and your personality.
Well, thank you. It's been so fun. Hopefully, I would love to keep in contact with you. I love hearing your stories. I think it's great what you're doing, and just remember to connect with everybody. And, if anybody's interested in the book, we've set the Amazon ebooks to have free downloads on Christmas Eve and Christmas and New Year's. That way, any family that's experiencing the NICU on the holidays, you've got something to read to the kids. And if you like our book, please, tag us on social media, or, write a review. I love reading the reviews. It really, warms my heart to feel like, we've made a difference. It's important to not feel alone yourself. And it's just so nice to hear how it's made an impact on other people.
I love that. That is so, you're just such, you and your husband are just such amazing people. Just thinking about being in the NICU during Christmas time. Oh, that was so sweet.
It's rough. Holidays are rough. So as many free days that Amazon will let me do for the ebook, especially, I'm just at click, but they only let you do so.
But it's still so.
But yes, it's definitely find our NICU Journey on Amazon, and just let us know if you guys like it.
Oh, please give your feedback. Please go out and support Sarah and her husband, their beautiful family, in their launch of their book, just freshly launched. I didn't realize it was
launched. Yes, it's only been a couple weeks.
And if you're currently in the NICU, definitely go and either purchase the book. We prefer you to purchase it, but if you're having some sort of hardships, or you want to download it and you're still in the NICU on Christmas, definitely go download the book and read it to your little one. But Sarah, I thank you so much. Follow her on Instagram, follow her on Facebook, go onto her website and get the book. Go on Amazon, get the book.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're such a gem. It was such a pleasure to have you on. And if you guys would like to tell your story, or if you know someone who would like to share their story on NICU Stories, definitely reach out to us at admin@NICUstories.com, and we will get you set up to share your story here as well. Have an amazing day,